Good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us on KARE 11 News Now. I'm Morgan Wolf. Our top story today, a group of immigration advocates, legal experts, and elected officials are demanding answers following a federal raid at Texbro in St. Paul. That raid involved armed agents from ICE, the FBI, and the DEA, who clashed with a large group of protesters. Immigration Defense Network, an organization behind the press conference, also held a vigil honoring those taken into custody.
We do not want to live in communities where public safety has been thrown away in order to terrorize our immigrant neighbors. We need lawmakers to defend Minnesota's communities, limit masking, require agency IDs for law enforcement agents, protect and defend those who are exercising their constitutional rights, and reaffirm that no one is above the law.
Now, the St. Paul mayor-elect, Kali Herr, also in attendance, expressing support to the community.
Everyone deserves to feel safe where they live, and there are real national security threats that the federal administration is responsible for addressing. But flooding our neighborhoods with ICE and other federal agents only heightens tensions on the ground rather than calming it.
Immigration and Customs Enforcement tells us that they were serving a search warrant as part of a criminal investigation. Jennifer Hoff has more on where things stand.
It didn't take long for a group of protesters to rally outside Brotex.
How dare you!
A longtime St. Paul paper company.
Outrageous, man.
Clashing then with federal agents. Witnesses say stormed the shop this morning.
Take off those masks!
In a statement, ICE says it was serving a search warrant, not confirming if anyone was arrested.
You took my dad.
Jesus Trejo saying they did detain his dad, who worked here most his life.
He's even a criminal. He comes and works. He supports our family.
An immigrant rights group deploying what they call constitutional observers to document what's happening.
We hold our police to a higher standard, and that's not what a state that prioritizes peaceful demonstrations and democracy should look like.
Take your mask off!
This comes 5 months after a raid at a Minneapolis Mexican restaurant the feds said was a drug trafficking probe after 900 pounds of meth was found in a storage unit. Then in October, federal agents detained a group of Latino roofers while on a job. A month later, pulling a man from his car in Northfield.
We can't always be aligned, but we should always be respectful.
Former Anoka County Sheriff and President Trump's pick to be Minnesota's U.S. Marshal, Jim Stewart, says administrations remove undocumented immigrants every year, tens of thousands, according to Department of Homeland Security data dating back to the early 1900s.
Right now, it's sad to me that it's become such a political divide, and tragically, we're getting way too much bystander involvement that's compromising the safety of everyone involved.
An emotional outcome.
This is absolutely wrong.
Leaving these people with more questions than answers.
At this time, we still do not know of the official number of people that were detained in St. Paul. But in other parts of the country, a massive ICE protest in North Carolina wrapping up just a few hours ago. This is new video of hundreds of people marching through downtown Raleigh after immigration raids intensified in the region over the weekend, and ICE is expanding to other southern cities. Federal authorities say that ICE is expected to arrive in New Orleans in about 10 days. This afternoon, we are waiting for more charges after more than a dozen men were busted in an alleged underage prostitution sting in Bloomington. Police are calling the sting Operation Creep. It comes just months after a similar operation ended with the arrest of former state lawmaker Justin Eichhorn. At least 16 people were taken into custody. At least 4 of those men have been formally charged so far. The 3-day sting was from earlier this month. It targeted people who wanted to have sex with whom they thought was a 17-year-old. From online platforms to in person, the suspects ended up meeting not a girl, but officers. Among those arrested, an ICE employee.
He is an auditor for them, a civilian employee. When he was arrested, he said, "I'm ICE boys." Well, unfortunately for him, we locked him up. He helped send people to send federal authorities. I think he's going to see some federal authorities because I think the feds are going to take this case.
Authorities also arrested a man who the chief says showed up with coke, meth, and 8 different firearms.
And he has no idea that he's on drone footage. He shows up with this rifle here, and he shows up, of course, with the drugs. And look at these needles. He's coming to meet a 17-year-old girl, right? So we locked him up.
Now, at this time, no one, sorry, 3, 2, 1. At this time, no one was as high profile as former state lawmaker Justin Eichhorn, but the police chief also said that a couple of those arrested were also detained by ICE. Today, the bill to demand the release of the Epstein files approved by the Senate this morning and now heading to the president's desk. The Epstein Files Transparency Act passed with the House with a vote of 427 to 1. GOP Representative Clay Higgins voting against the measure. The bill would require the Department of Justice to release all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials relating to the late convicted sex offender. Advocates say that the files could reveal potential ties between Epstein and powerful people like President Trump. After resisting the move for months, the president said earlier this week that he will sign the bill, saying he has, quote, nothing to hide. If the law is enacted, those records should be released within 30 days. Today, former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers stepping down from the board of OpenAI amidst the Epstein controversy. Now, the move comes a week after the House community released emails showing that Summers maintained a friendly relationship long after Epstein's guilty plea to soliciting prostitution from underage girls. Now, in that personal correspondence, Summers wrote to Epstein seeking romantic advice and at times making sexist remarks. Summers served as Bill Clinton's Treasury Secretary as well as former President Barack Obama's Economic Council Director. He was also president of Harvard from 2001 to 2006. The university announced today that it is opening an investigation into Summers and nearly a dozen other people. Since the release of the emails, Summers has said that he is stepping away from public commitments. The most decorated American cross-country skier is retiring. We're talking about Jessie Diggins announcing today that this will be her final season competing, and the season does include the 2026 Winter Olympic Games in Milan Cortina. Diggins now has won 3 Olympic medals, 3 overall World Cup titles, and 8 World Championship medals. In a post on social media today, Diggins says that it is going to be hard to step away from the sport and team that she loves so much, but that she is excited to open a new chapter in her life. All right, on to some world news now. In Ukraine, a large-scale Russian missile attack on western Ukraine overnight, leaving at least 20 people dead and dozens injured. Ukrainian officials saying that Russia fired more than 450 strikes and decoy drones. NBC's Matt Bodner has more.
It was another long night in Ukraine. This time it was the western city of Ternopil that took the worst of it. A combined missile and drone strike hit 2 blocks of apartments. Video of the aftermath showed these apartments were critically damaged, collapsing in parts. This wounded scores of people, some of them children. Last night's strikes also hit Lviv, one of the major cities in western Ukraine. And on the other side of the country, Kharkiv was also targeted. These strikes also targeted energy and transport infrastructure, forcing emergency power cuts in a number of regions. This all followed the Ukrainian military saying that it had used long-range American-made missiles against military targets within Russia. Notably, this is the first time Ukraine said that it had used this type of munition for these types of strikes. Ukraine has been using them on Russian targets on Ukrainian territory, but has been prohibited by the United States from sending them further in. All the while, Ukraine has been conducting long-range strikes into Russia using its own domestically produced weapons. They have some long-range missiles and they make a lot of drones. This latest development suggests that the White House may have changed its policy about Ukrainian long-range strikes in Russia, though we have not yet heard anything from the White House on this count. And Ukraine does say that it will continue to do these types of strikes moving forward. And this all comes as an American delegation actually arrived in Kyiv today, led by senior U.S. Army officials. They say that they're on a fact-finding mission to talk to Ukrainian officials about the war and about how to end the war. Back to you.
And take a look at this video capturing a series of volcano eruptions in Indonesia. Officials raising the alert for Mount Semeru volcano to the highest level today, saying that clouds of hot ash rose to 1.2 miles and a mixture of rock, lava, and gas traveled up to 4 miles down its slopes. Now, while the volcano has erupted numerous times in the past 2 centuries, it is located on Indonesia's most densely populated island in East Java province. Authorities say that no casualties have yet to have been reported. Stick with us. We got more news and weather coming up after the break.